Hey, y'all, and welcome to another exciting episode of Down Home Dirt, the show where we dive deep into the journey of entrepreneurship with those who took the plunge and all the ups and downs that come with it. I'm your host, Dusta, and today we're joined with Natascha with Inkvictus Studios out of Raleigh. Thank you for coming on and welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I was so excited when you reached out.
I believe we met, it was on Facebook, is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. It was through a comment section of something.
Yes, and because you were sharing some of your struggles with being an entrepreneur, and I was like, perfect, because this is the part that not a lot of people get to hear, which is why I wanted to share it with you, with everyone. And I'm
Yeah,
wearing my costume today. Got my little witch hat, my little pumpkin shirt. So
I
very
love
festive.
it.
So let's start out with you. Where are you from and how long have you lived in the Triangle?
So I grew up near Asheboro, North Carolina. So it's about an hour and a half west of Raleigh. And I have officially been in Raleigh for 10 years this year, which is really fun and exciting. But yeah. What brought me to the Triangle, just small town trying to, have more opportunities. So
I feel that 1,000%. I moved here as well approximately 10 years ago to North Carolina in general. I started out in Asheville and I was like, I think I need a little bit more. And so I was like, let me go to the second biggest city. It'll be fun.
yeah.
And been here ever since, have not left. So I get it.
It's definitely home. I've enjoyed being here. Coming into adulthood and those types of things, you don't really know what you're expecting, but Raleigh is definitely home to me now, and I don't see myself leaving anytime soon.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. I'm here. I've been here, and I honestly haven't really thought about leaving in a while. So that must be it's home.
It means something.
So let's jump in. Tell me about your business. What do you do, and who's your ideal client?
So, my business is Inkvictus Studios, and we focus on cosmetic enhancements. So, think about tattooing, traditional tattooing, piercing, anything that just enhances cosmetically, anything like that. And we also recently brought on florals as well, just another way to reach out into a different audience that we've never had before. Our ideal client is really anybody who just wants to feel good and be embraced by people who care about what we're doing and, just want to feel pretty, but also feel at home within a community.
I think that's very important, especially when you're making eyebrow enhancements and things like that.
Mhm. Yeah, we do
As
a
you
lot
can
of
tell,
different things.
yeah, I was like, as you can tell, I've had mine tattooed on. So
Mhm.
it was very important when picking the right person that I was like, okay, I have to feel comfortable. I have to feel welcomed.
And that was kind of the mission for Inkvictus as well, because there are so many services out there. We kind of wanted to become a hub of people who really care about what we're doing and have, the knowledge to, it's not just about quality, like you meant, I mean, quantity, like you mentioned, it's not in and out. It's like, let's build relationships and, we can do facials. There's such a list of services that we do. But when you come here, a lot of times people kind of hop around to each other service provider that we have. It's just like the one-stop shop, but no matter who you go to, that quality is there as well.
And it's very important, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
So let's talk about some of the common challenges that you faced and how have you overcome them with this business?
I mean, to be blunt, the beauty industry is tough. It's very catty. It's very, you're kind of pressured to push for money, push for profit, push for those types of things. And that alone is very taxing, especially when you're 23 and you have no idea what you're doing. So when I started, it was just by myself. I was doing tattooing and I eventually grew to a larger team. But I guess the challenges and all were just being a boss and never being that before, never owning a business before. And it just kind of, that just adds a lot of pressure on top of it, on top of the already established, pressures and things that come with this industry. So, yeah, there's a lot. And I could probably spend the next 45 minutes talking about that just in general. But as for overcoming, just trying to figure out what our mission was. And I always tell people like this wasn't just what is Invictus? It was kind of a personal journey for myself too. So as I'm finding out who I am as an adult, and that reflects into Invictus as well. So it's been really cool to see both. As for overcoming, it's just being as optimistic as you can and dealing with the harsh stuff and dealing with the mistakes or the failures, as some would say, but knowing like you believe in what you're doing and you know it's for a reason, and that translates into people booking, people referring you, people praising you, and like those types of things. So that's kind of what holds us accountable, but also proves to us that we're doing something right.
I always tell everybody on the podcast that failure is the door to success. So, like, if we're not failing,
Mhm.
we're not figuring it out, basically. And I feel like it's so important as an entrepreneur to make sure that we highlight that, yeah, you're going to fall on your face, but if you don't, you're not going to learn how to make it right.
Absolutely. And that's something that I really push to. Like, I know I use the word failure, but I specifically don't count anything that I've done as a failure. The only thing that to me resonates as a failure is if I stop, and that's not going to happen. So there may be mistakes. Everything's a learning curve, and, moving forward that way. But I think it's easy for people to fall into, I failed, I didn't do it right. But at the end of the day, it's bigger than just me. I have a team that's counting on me, I have a community that's counting on me. And how I show up to those mistakes is what's going to really dictate what is happening for this company, long term. And so I try not to use the word failure because I'm not going anywhere. Inkvictus isn't going anywhere. But, the mistakes are definitely there. And how you perceive those mistakes or what's going to, like I said, dictate where you're going.
I appreciate you for sharing that because that's sometimes we would highlight all of our successes, but we're not doing that on this podcast. We're going to show you, hey, we've been through some stuff and here's how we got
Mhm.
over it.
Well, it's definitely easy. You see so many success stories like you've mentioned, and it's easy to see the curated feeds of like, yeah, I'm a business or I'm a successful business person and I drive a Tesla and I have bank, money in the bank and I'm going to do all these things and I'm doing that and I'm doing this. But, that's not, I don't think that's the reality of it. I think people like to hold on to those things and kind of highlight those big things or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, it really means nothing. That doesn't mean your business has revenue. That doesn't mean you're actually profiting anything. It just means, oh, you decided to buy a Tesla or whatever, whatever your thing is. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean anything.
No, absolutely. Speaking of the future, how do you want to see your company grow? What is your expectation for the next year?
I mean, our biggest thing is something that I say all the time, like a business. Just because you have a business doesn't actually mean it's a business. The only way you have a business is if it's sustainable. And a lot of the time, and this is what it was for Inkvictus for a long time too, if I wasn't taking clients, we weren't going to pay the bills. And so I was kind of forced into a position. Oh, so sorry. I thought I muted that. I was pushed into a position where if I wasn't working, like the business was going to fail. And, anyways, when I lost my train of thought, so sorry. Where was I saying? I did derail. It was I was on it, and then the phone rang, but I muted it.
We're just talking about your future goals for like the next year.
Yes. So thank you very much. So yeah, the a lot of the times with business, what I have noticed just being in it for 5 years is you might say you're a business, but there's no business there. It's not a business until it's sustainable. And like I said, the revenue has to be there, but the profits are there as well. So something that I've been really focusing on is, building those structures and making sure everything is set in stone to where it is sustainable. And, the whole point of building a business is to prevent the things that make it unstable from happening. So that's really what I've been doing for the last year and a half. And so the future Inkvictus is like, okay, we have the systems in place. Let's make sure they're perfect so the foundation is built and then we can grow in those ways. Marketing, trying to get clients through the doors, trying to get more team members, those types of things. We want to we don't want to just be a profitable business. Yeah, that's great, but we really want to be known as like a brand that people can count on and people know that anybody who walks through our doors, they're reliable and they believe in those, true values of being ethical, leading with integrity, and, just being accessible to any and everybody who wants to be able to have our types of services and feel a type of way and be welcomed into it.
I agree with you 100%. Growing a business is not always easy, especially when there's so many, I want to say different, you're like juggling. There's different balls in the air and you're always like, okay, which one
Absolutely.
do I give the most attention to and to get where I
Mhm.
want? So I love that
Absolutely.
you've highlighted all of that because you're right.
Thank you. And it's funny too because I get that response of like, oh no, that makes sense. Oh yeah, you're right. But when I first started 5 years ago, I mean, like I said, I was 23 years old. I had no background on any of these things. And that's something that I've really put in the work to learn. And I'm a true workaholic, but I love what I do. And I promise I am spending 90% of my time working on my 3 businesses, but also working on the growth and the mindset and learning how to be a good leader. Because, like I said earlier, my attitude is what's going to direct the entire team. And yes, things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen. Things are going to not be great. They're not going to pan out the way you wanted to, but you have to approach it in a way of like, okay, yes, that sucks, but what can I learn from it? What can I prevent it? And put that system in place to then become sustainable. So it's just the approach that I see and that I don't think enough people see. And I want more people to realize it in that way.
I'm 5 years in my business cleaning, and
Mhm.
I am still trying to figure out how to make it to be sustainable, profitable, all the things. And sometimes that's just a struggle for me.
Well, it's not common knowledge. It's not really out there. Like, yeah, you can Google how do I start a business, and it's going to give you the most vague, bare minimum answers. And that's another big thing. What we're trying to do with Inkvictus is make that type of information accessible. And, being a business owner, there's like that stamp of what should business owners post? What should a boss post? And that's actually where you kind of came in because you saw me, I posted that picture that kind of went viral. And I know what my intention was, but I know that it was kind of 50-50. And I just like, I want to be real and I want to talk about these things, but also let's make the things that aren't easily accessible out there so people can find it that ideally could help you or help whoever needs it. I don't know. I just always say we do things differently around here. I've realized like my perspective on things is very different. Just the team that we have, we try to do things, like I said, with those values in mind. And yeah, anyways.
Can we talk about the post a little bit? You can tell
Yeah.
me what prompted you to choose to post this, and like what was the situation behind it?
So, I mean, like I said, and I've said it 10 times and I'll say it 10 more times. Like when I started, I had no idea what I was doing. And I've just always wanted to be the person. Like building a business wasn't about profit to me, believe it or not. In the last 5 years, they're like, yes, I've made money, but it's not been, the type of money that people are like wishing for. Like it's
Mhm.
probably less than it should be, which again, I'm fine with that because at the end of the day, what I wanted Invictus to be was a community with people who, I mean, we're forced to go to job, right? We have to have a job, we have to make money somehow. And 99% of the time, people don't like where they're at and they're working because they have to and they can't be themselves, or there's just all these things that prevent them from doing what they want to do. And I was like, if I can make a space where everybody can come, I'm in charge of the atmosphere, what the expectations are, but at the end of the day the goal is to just get people together that love what they do, love where they do it, and love who they do it with, and my job is complete. Like that's all I've ever wanted. But again, you have to learn the hard way that not everybody who aligns with you or works for you is in alignment with that. Not every person you partner with is in alignment with that. And so trying to create that, I had to, do different things. And so one of the things was, if you want a successful business, you get a storefront. That's what the next step is. A storefront is going to drive traffic. It's going to drive people coming to your studio, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, a storefront wasn't worth it for me. I spent a lot of money having that storefront where money could have realistically went other places, but there was no way for me to know that. And so while I was there, again, I was the only reason the business was paying the bills. And I had a team that wasn't aligned with the values. And it was just a very taxing, and it really, put a lot on me. It was a lot of pressure. It was very stressful. It was really hard, trying to do right because again, I was the leader and I wanted everyone to be happy and be successful and whatever, but it just didn't work out that way. And so eventually, that we kind of like restarted with the team, we restarted a business model, we kind of put all these things in place to change. But anyways, that building had a lot of, resentment in it. And so when I finally gave away the keys, I flipped the building off and I made a post about it. And people took it as like, oh, the business is closing, or, she hates her team, or all these things. And I was like, no, that wasn't the point of the post. The post was about closing a door and letting out the emotions that were attached to that building, and like looking towards the future, because the future now is like, I am confident in who I am when I wasn't before. I am confident in what Invictus is and where we're headed. And I am confident in the team that we've all worked so hard on building that believes in it and stuff. So it was a post that Didn't go the way I expected, but in like, it was kind of, you have to laugh at it, but it's about shutting the door and learning from it, gathering the data from everything that didn't work out and implementing it into your new systems. So that's kind of what happened.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up because that's something that we haven't really talked about before in the podcast is when you realize that your team isn't working for you. Like, what do you
Mhm.
do? I personally, I'll share my story. Whenever I had my business, I started in 2020. It took off exponentially quick because I started during a pandemic and I'm cleaning, right? So I'm
Mhm.
obviously going to take off. So immediately we jump from a few clients to we need help. So I go and I attempt to do this myself is to hire staff and people who believed what I believe. But the problem is that it was such a tumultuous time for anyone to get a job that I was at this point just looking for bodies because I needed help. And that turned very toxic very quickly. And I believe it was in 2022 June, which was basically, 2 years later, I was like, look, we weren't in the negative, but we were at $0 in the bank account. And we were like,
Yeah.
okay, this is not working because yes, we're
Mhm.
paying people, but we're losing clients left and right because they're not the right people for the vision.
Mhm.
And that's kind of when I realized that, I'm not good at hiring. So
Mhm.
that's something that I need to find out. Instead of figuring out how I'm going to do it, I needed to figure out who I'm going to get to do this. So
Yeah.
then we've reached out to different avenues, obviously, since then to be able to hire.
Mhm.
But it was just kind of one of those things where I was like, wow, like, yes, it's growing fast, but again, juggling all the balls, the hiring was just not my thing. And it still isn't. And I will admit that. And so sometimes we have to just start from scratch and be like, you know what? Scrap it. Moving forward, let's do something different.
Absolutely. And I mean, do I think that everybody who joined my team back then was like horrible people and like blah, blah, blah? Like, no, I really truly wish them the best. I hope everything they're doing now is happy for them. But did they align with like where Inkvictus was going? No. And I truly believe, like, even with our team now, if somebody's not meant to be a part of this team, even if we have a whole hiring process, but people are still going to fall through the cracks. It's going to happen, but I'm confident that the group we have now, we're so true and aligned in our values. If someone does slip through the cracks, they're not going to last very long. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. And again, it's not, oh, we wish them the worst and we hate them and, we don't want them to succeed. It's just, you don't fit here and that's okay. And I think that's also something that is hard for people to wrap their heads around. It's really hard, to first off to trust people to come into a business that you've worked so hard building, and you trust them to come in, and like you said, you start losing money, you start doing this, and that's kind of what happened. It doesn't necessarily mean they were doing the job wrong. It just wasn't in alignment with what Invictus or your business or whatever was like putting out into the world. And so, it just didn't fit. And it's really taxing when you bring people on and you're doing the most you can for them and you're paying them and you're giving them a place to grow and flourish. And it's not mutually benefiting, and that's what it turned into. I was the one that was paying all the bills. I was the one handling the clients. I mean, at that time I had a team, but I was still doing 99% of the work. Like, they were coming to work, they were doing their jobs, but their job was only serving the client. It wasn't all the other back end stuff that was needing to be done. And, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I definitely made mistakes, but like I said, that resentment built up and I could feel it. And I was like, that's never going to happen again. That's what it comes down to, I think.
No, absolutely. And we all learn. And like I said, I have never tried to hire someone else again because I know
Mhm.
that's not my thing. And also through that process, I've learned that who I'm looking for, if that makes sense. Because before I was just looking for someone who could come to work, who could show up, right? And you're right. And I was like, why am I paying you if I'm doing everything? I'm having to reset the chemicals. I'm having to make sure everything is washed. I'm having to deal with customers. I'm not paying you anymore, to be honest. So
Yeah.
it was just a reset. And being an entrepreneur, we have to go through this sometimes. So that's why I like to highlight things like this because it isn't always a highlight reel. This is real
Mhm.
stuff that we deal with.
Absolutely. I think, like we've mentioned, so many people see the positives because you have that perfectly curated feed of all the successes, but you don't see the grit that goes in behind it. And I've said it before, like, I understand why so many businesses don't make it to 5 years. And it's because there's no information out there how to be successful. There's no information out there how to hire the right team. And even if there was, I don't think we focus on like what is the true vision. I think a lot of people are just like, I want to make money. And it's like, okay, well, you can make money, but it's only going to go so far. And like I said, if you're not creating something that's sustainable, you're going to end up closed down or whatever sooner than later. And yeah, I don't remember where I was going with that, but those are my feelings.
Absolutely. I love the honesty. I'm very honest on here too. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, people are going to know how I feel, but it's like, honestly, it's okay.
Yeah.
So, moving forward, let's talk about your support system. Who's your biggest supporter, and how has having that support system helped you to practice success?
I mean, it's kind of wild because when I first opened up Inkvictus, I was actually in the middle of getting a divorce or very close to it. And so creating Inkvictus was truly my escape from that. Everything was chaotic at home, and I wanted to find a job I loved. I wanted to be surrounded by people, like I'd mentioned earlier. And so I didn't really have a true support system. Like, yes, I had, my family, which is my older brother and his wife, but they live in a different state. I was really in Raleigh, like by myself with not very many people. And building my support system that's kind of like what I started looking at to hiring, like who's been here, who's, shown they care, who does these things. And so Hallie, she's our community coordinator. She's been a part of Inkvictus for 2-3 years now. And she's been a huge support system. She's the one that just lets me, vent, get everything out, whatever the case is, and then we're like, okay, let's move forward type thing. I've since remarried to a wonderful human being who's been a part of my life for over 8 years now, and we just kind of rekindled and came back together. But to be with someone who doesn't make me feel crazy, he lets me vent, he lets me do these things. And being a business owner, it's hard, you're by yourself a lot of the times. And yes, I have a team, I have a family who's very supportive, but you don't have people to connect with. And so, like, yeah, I can like talk about all these different things, but people only get it to a certain extent and whatnot. So having a husband who lets me vent when I need to, having a team that lets me vent and like sees me as not just a hierarchy, because that's not what this is. Like, we're all people and we're all aimed for, like, we all just want to support each other. We all just want to make money. We want to love what we do and we want to take care of our clients. And so to have a team that aligns with that and sees me as a human who's doing my best, that alone has been the biggest help for me. And that, aligns with having the right people on your team as well. Because I didn't have the right people per se on my team, it made it even heavier to feel my feelings and try to, when you get stuck in your personal feelings, it makes it really hard to make business decisions. It makes it harder to make the hard decisions. And so having a team that believes in like the mission and we all align and they see me as human, having a husband who makes my home life easier but also is easier on the business life, and then those types of things, that's really what's made figuring out what Inkvictus is meant to be the easiest part. It's not just all relying on me. It's like I can have people to bounce ideas off of who aren't gonna name call or judge or whatever the case is.
That's very important. I, like you, was also I was leaving a domestic violence relationship, which is the reason I started my business so that I could leave, because I was a stay-at-home mom prior to that. And so everything was, you're like saying, chaotic at home, and I was like, but I got this business, but I got
Yeah.
this going for me. And so,
Mhm.
and sometimes those lines can be blurred,
Mhm.
but I feel the same way. And it's hard, especially when you're starting a business and there is no family, there is no support system. It's like, who do you really turn to, you know?
Mhm. And you have to, you have to get kind of creative, trying to find the people who do align with you. And I'm someone who will, like, I'm always saying I'm an open book. I'll talk about everything. And, that's kind of a good thing and a bad things at times. But when you truly figure out who you are and what your business is meant to, the right people are going to find you. And then it's up to you again to like build those relationships with people. Like, business is relationships at the end of the day. A lot of people say don't make friends with your employees or your business or whatever and stuff, but like I don't do that. Like, I want to know about them. I want to know who they go home to, or I want to know their pets' names, what their hobbies are and stuff, because that's how you build a connection. And I don't want anyone to be like, oh, Natasha's just here on those days. The other time she's doing whatever she wants. It's like, no, you need to build that, because if you don't build relationships with your team, again, you're not being human. And then how can you expect them to make relationships with everyone else? So I don't know. It's always 50-50. Some people are like, never get close to your team. And some people are like, do it. And I'm full on like, you have to, because you want them to be able to give you grace, and you can't if you're just the person ordering them around to do things.
No, absolutely. I'm the same way, and I feel like there's a happy balance between that. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my god, I'm so sorry that happened. You should just take the day off. I'll do it.
Well, it's a fine line, and I see it, on a monthly basis. It's like, okay, what is this me being empathetic, or is this like it's not being sustainable to the business? Like, yeah, you're having, and we do big mental health days at here too. So if somebody's not feeling good, like they can reach out. We will not question them. You like it's when you aren't feeling well, even if it's just a mental day, seeing clients and having to put on that customer service thing. And not that we wear masks here, but it's still taxing. You can be in the best mood, but still not be here mentally. And then, having to see client after client after client it's not great. And that's something about this industry that I think a lot of people push. It's like, okay, you're not having a good day. Oh, well, slap a smile on the face and move forward. And that's just not something we do here. But again, how far can we go with that? It's like, again, learning the people, caring about the people, wanting to be a part of their lives or whatever. That's what's going to, in my opinion, has helped me create that boundary of like, listen, I hear you and I love you. But if you're coming in late every day, like that's a problem, like those types of things. There's definitely that fine line. And I would say that's probably the hardest part of trying to run a business in this way is like, when does it become too much? And when is it acceptable and when if it's not acceptable? But the only way to do that is to communicate. And so for one person, what's acceptable may not be acceptable for someone else. And so if you can communicate with your team, like, hey, this is what we're noticing, and like, we have these things for a reason, and we care and we love you and we want to be there for you. What can we do for you? Let's talk about it. And if things don't get better, then it's like, okay, let's have a second conversation. What's not working? I think just having that line of communication, but also the fact that we've built individual relationships with everyone makes it easier to have those conversations. And it's not like we're trying to attack you or anything. It's just like, hey, we've noticed something's not right, and we want you to be your 100%. And so how can we get you there? That's where the empathy comes in. But I think everybody understands at the end of the day, it is a business, and it does affect not just your clients. It affects, because if somebody, like for instance, if someone left a bad review, that's a reflection on the whole team, like on the whole team. And so when you have that true sense of teamwork and you have those relationships built, you can have those conversations of just, we want to help you, this isn't sustainable, what do we need to do? And that's what's, I think, helped Invictus the most.
That's amazing. Part of this podcast is therapy to me as well. I'm learning from other people because it's these intimate conversations that kind of help you grow as a person. So I do appreciate your insight. That's actually made me realize that maybe I do need to work on boundaries a little bit better. I
It's
get
just
to know people, but also have a boundary.
yeah, you have to, like, again, you are a person. And as long as you know you're doing your best and your team knows you're doing your best, then you can have those, that open dialogue about it. But when they just view you as someone who dictates things, like, you're not going to get that same level of understanding and respect. And I mean, I listen to my team. Each one of them has horror stories from other bosses. Each one has worked for a place, if not multiple places, that took advantage of them, took their voice away from them or whatever. And that's like, I refuse that here. Like, I won't tolerate that. It's like, if you need to say something, we're going to talk about it. If you do something wrong that affects one team member or the whole team, whatever, like, we're going to talk about it, and I'm very fortunate that because we have a team that aligns with all of those things, and like they understand and we all value and love one another, like we don't really have situations like this arise. It's because like everybody just respects it. And I think that has a lot to do with having the right team and, speaking about these things as well.
Absolutely. It's great
Mhm.
insight. It's something I'm going to reflect on later because I'm going to be hiring soon, but not me. We're
Well,
going to
good luck with that.
find. Thank you. So let's talk about your marketing strategy. Like, what's your main marketing strategy right now? And like, how do you get the word out about you?
I mean, I always joke that we're like screaming, our values and things from the rooftops of downtown Raleigh. We're just really big on, I'm not afraid of the public. And like anytime you're doing anything, like there's going to be confrontation, there's going to be criticism, there's going to be hate, there's going to be love. Like, you get the best of both worlds. And when you can accept that, that's when, and I'm, like I said, I'm an open book, but I'm also not afraid to scream out who we are. Like when you become so confident, it's like you just do it. And so our biggest marketing strategy is just trying to get our values and who the type of people we are in front of as many and everybody, anybody and everybody. So, I mean, we're big on like, because we have multiple services, we have multiple team members who do different things and specialize in different things. Like, we want everybody to be recognized. So, keeping it fair, nobody's being shown more than once, trying to keep that fair all the way around. We're also big about, calling out things that aren't right in this industry. That includes, money hungry business owners. That includes service providers who aren't being ethical. That includes laws in North Carolina that aren't taking care of clients and artists. Like, if we see something that isn't right and we like truly fully believe it, we're screaming it as loud as we possibly can. And I'm grateful that that alone has really built our reputation. Like, I made a post the other day in a group, and somebody messaged on the post and said, I was about to say this sounds a lot like Inkvictus, and then I saw who posted it, and I was like, that was the best compliment I could have ever gotten. It's like, I'm glad that people know our tone, they know what we stand for, and that I think has helped us a lot in our marketing. Also, like I said, it's all about people. So building connection, something that Hallie's really big about in her role is connecting with people and not being afraid to talk to people and not being afraid to get to know people. There's a reason people come here. And so we want to know why. Like, what did we do special? And I don't know, there's a lot. I spend most of my time working on, the brand awareness of it all, because that's what it is. At the end of the day, it's not, I think a lot of people get caught up in trying to sell the service when in reality, people don't buy services, they buy brands and what they believe in and who they believe in. So we really try to focus on us as individuals, us as a group, and throw in a little bit of humor and silliness in the mix. And that's pretty much our marketing, like genuinely. And again, that's what people are seeing, and that's what are making people come to us, which we're really grateful for. It's validating when you're confident in who you are and then you're just like yelling it and people are receiving it and coming. Like, that's, the validation of you're doing things right. So,
Absolutely. And you're attracting the people who are attracted to you instead of the people who
exactly.
just want to get a, in and out quick thing. Cause that's not what you
Mhm.
want. You're a brand.
And that aligns, with the same thing of like getting the right team. You want to find the right clientele. And the only way to find the right clientele is to know exactly who you are and what you offer. So along the last 5 years, building myself and, my personal journey, like fine tuning what Inkvictus is, what our values are, that attracts the right team, that attracts the right clients. So we don't really run into issues of, it's really the people who are definitely not inside our network who are the ones that are, saying hateful comments or, the nasty criticism, those types of things. But genuinely, it's so few and far between at this point. Like, we're really grateful. And it doesn't mean like just because it doesn't happen as often, it's not as hurtful as it is or whatever. But, it's easier to kind of get over it if that's the case. But again, you just have to really know who you are and what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. So I got to know, what is a great piece of advice that you would give someone who's wanting to do the same thing that you're doing, whether it be an entrepreneur or be an entrepreneur in the beauty industry?
Oh, that's tough. I can give so much different words of advice for something like that. I think the biggest thing, and I always hear people say, like, find their community, but you can't find your community unless you're confident in who you are and what you want and, like, what you're standing for. Like, everybody, find what you're opening a business for if that's what you're trying to do, or if you're going to work for someone, same concept. Like, if you're working for someone, you're still your own brand, you're still your own reputation. And that's something I push a lot here. Like, yes, everyone that works at Inkvictus, we're under the umbrella. Like, we all value, like I said, the ethics, the integrity, accessibility, all that stuff, but we're all our individual people. And so find either, if you need to create that in your own place, go build that there. Or if you're part of a bigger team, you still can be that and like find what that is, be 100% confident in it and learn and like ask yourself the hard questions and then throw that into the world. And then everything else will kind of come to you. I feel it sounds like cheesy saying it out loud, but you just have to know exactly what you're working for and where you stand and what you believe in. And you can't do anything else before that. I think if somebody would have told me when I first started to like, what are you building Invictus for? I think that would have really helped me get to certain decisions quicker, and it would have probably changed the trajectory of this business a lot more as well.
No, absolutely. And, my thing is always do it stupid and take messy action because done is better than perfect. So I always tell people, like, when they ask me like about the podcast, I'm like, I'm doing it stupid. I'll figure it out as I go along.
Yeah.
That's fine. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what I wanted season one to be, is about the fact that, I'm stumbling across things. I don't really have my questions formulated, but you know what? Like, the more I talk to people and the more therapy I get out of it, the more I realize
Mhm.
what are the good questions? What is the meat and potatoes of what people really want to know? So that's
Absolutely.
I feel like with different industries, obviously it changes, and so that's why I kind of try to have broad questions and then just tailor them as I go because I'm a very curious person too. So
Mhm. I'm the same way.
yeah. So I do got to ask too, what was the most impactful advice you got in order to start your business?
There was no impactful advice in order to start my business. I was kind of put in a position of I spent $4,500 on a tattoo training, and she kind of ghosted me. So it was either open up my own business because I wasn't going to be able to find a job. I didn't have a portfolio, I didn't really have a lot of knowledge, I didn't have any experience. So it was either spend $4,500 and be done or open up my own studio. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to open up my own studio. And it was just drive, a whole lot of drive. There wasn't very much business advice for a long time. And I think because I didn't have business advice, I really relied on my team and like the little community that I had. But again, we've already noticed like that wasn't they weren't aligned with the vision. So getting advice from them wasn't going to help me. But again, I didn't know any better. Looking back now, I'm like, oh, a lot of that makes sense because we weren't aimed at the same end result. So we were never going to get to the same, to the right answer per se. Like, yeah, based on their vision, probably could have been perfect, worked out great for them, whatever the case is. But where Inkvictus was headed, we didn't have the right people. So getting the information wasn't needed for where we were going. But again, I'm a person who has a lot of drive, and if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And so just the millions of readings and stuff that I read just kind of like helped me get to where I was, if that makes sense. I don't know if that really answers your question, but
Yes.
unfortunately there isn't any impactful feedback that I got from people, unfortunately. Yeah, there was things where people were like, hey, do this, hey, do that, hence, getting a storefront, but it didn't work out. And it didn't work out because it wasn't aligned with where my business was going, and I didn't know that at the time because I didn't know where my business was going. I had an idea, but I didn't truly sit down and write it down.
I think that just based on the fact that we've talked for, a few minutes here and
Mhm.
we've kind of have things that are similar in common, that we kind of were the same. It was like, hey, I really don't have a choice first and foremost, and I have to succeed, and we'll figure out the business plan along the way. And then there are
Mhm.
people who go out there and they have their whole 5-year business plan out, right?
Yeah.
And then something happens and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. So I
Mhm.
sometimes feel like people, who just kind of jump into it and figure it out along the way are more successful than those who like have all these plans.
Yeah. And you have to trust yourself too. Like I trusted myself to know that I was going to do something and Invictus was going to be known and it was going to, at the end of the day, if I couldn't promise anything, I could promise that I cared and I wanted the best for anybody who was a part of it. And I wanted the best, for me. Like I'm creating this space, like you want to have some benefit to it. So I knew that, and I was just like, I always say, you can only do the best with what you know, and when you know better, do better. And
Love
that's
it.
what I tell myself that all the time. I didn't at 23, I had no idea. I just knew like, all right, I got a business license, made myself a website, I got business cards, and all of a sudden people started lining up at my door to a point where it got so busy I needed to bring on people. Again, never been a business owner before, never been a boss before, never had people relying on me underneath you, or I don't even want to say underneath, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, people clearly believe in what we're doing because people are coming. And so how can I do the best for them? And again, were there times where I let my personal emotions affect the business side of things? 1000%. Are there times where I probably allowed the business to take over my life and like I lacked in the personal side of things? 100%. But like again, it's just being self-aware and trusting yourself that you are doing the absolute best with what you have in this moment. And once you learn and get that data, then you can again implement it. Business ownership is really just continuously seeing problems and plot holes and gaps and figuring out how to prevent them or improve them a million times over and over and over again. Every time something happens, it's a reflection of what and how can I fix what to make it better, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it. And learning how to pivot is one of those things. A business will always keep
100%.
you on your toes.
Yes.
Nothing about it is repetitive other than, oh, another year of filing taxes,
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
I feel like there's so many ups and downs and it's just it's fun. It's been a roller coaster ride, but honestly, I can't picture myself doing anything else.
It's not on my, like, when things get hard, you're kind of like, yes, it would be so much easier when I was in that room by myself before I brought to, like 5 years ago when I had my studio, I had got everything ready, I was taking clients, like, I was making real good money, like, genuinely. Like, it's kind of crazy the amount of money I was bringing in by myself. But, I was thinking long term, as soon as I stop, that's the end of it. Like, as soon as I quit, unless, like, yes, I can put money in my 401k and I can do all those types of things, but realistically, that's not that incoming money. And so the only way to get more incoming money is to grow it and turn it into something. And again, a lot of business owners are very self-absorbed and they want, like, okay, I'm going to profit and I'm going to, like, do all this and then I'm going to set it up and then I'm going to make all the money. And it's like, I never looked at it that way. Like, ever, there was never a part, like, even when I was making a ton of money by myself, it was like, what could I be doing with this and how could it be better? And so now that I have a team, I'm putting it all, into these people because I want them to do so well. And that is what's fulfilling to me. Like I said, the money is just like a cherry on top when there is money, because right now there's not, because I'm pouring so much back into the business to make those systems in place and whatnot. But I once again forgot where I was going. But my whole point is saying you can, it's like there's a lot of self-absorption. A lot of people are focused on what they're doing. Like I said, the Teslas and the whatever they're doing, blah, 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 blah. But when you just take a step back and see like the true reason for owning a business and having people believe in you and stuff, like it's going to pour back into you. Sometimes, like I said, you have to sacrifice, which is what I've been doing, but I don't see it as a sacrifice because I know it's a bigger picture. It's much bigger than me. And I don't see myself ever working for someone else to that capacity. And I don't ever see, again, I lost where I was going. I didn't finish my coffee clearly. But yeah, it's like you want to do the best you can. And if like the intention's there, it's going to happen. You just have to push through it. And I think a lot of people just see the highlight reels and they're like, I want to be a business owner so I can make all of this and do all of this. But in reality, I think there's so much more humility to it. And not enough people view that side of business, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm here to do is to be like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I feel like I'm alone on an island. I feel like no one else understands what I'm going through. And then I started talking to people, other entrepreneurs, and I'm like, oh, okay, look, I'm not alone. And then that's where the whole idea came from. I was like, you know what? There is not, enough people out there with resources and education and connection, and that's kind of where this whole thing was brought. And that's what we do. We'd like to bring in people to come in and talk about like the small business center, the chamber of commerce, just different ways to like gain knowledge and not feel alone.
Mhm.
So
Like
it's
you
very
said, it's tough. It's tough not knowing anything. I didn't go to business school or do any of those things, but I have my vision for Inkvictus. I know like what my why is, which is like I said, you got to figure out what that is and just keep pushing towards it. And knowing the bad and the good is going to happen regardless of what you're doing, and just be resilient, keep pushing, and people who love you are going to make it worth it, and like love what you're doing are going to make it worth it. That's going to be your constant validation.
absolutely. I have clients that have been with me since the beginning who are now closer to me than any of my family members could possibly
Yep.
be.
Right there with you.
And they're cheering me on. And like anytime I come to them with a new idea, they're like, yes or no. And they're just such good human beings and they support everything, including the podcast. So shout
I
out to Miss
mean,
Beth.
yay. And I have that too. I have the people who have been on and they've watched, the ups and downs. They've watched the hearts. They've been there for the hearts, but they've been there just as good for the successes and the big moments and all those things. And those, like you said, they're closer to me than like family, and they're close. Like I invite them to my wedding, and I invited them, to like be parts of my birthdays and stuff because they believe in it and they see it. And, sometimes that's more than what other people are doing for you. People who are almost like more obligated, I guess, per se, just because it's blood or whatever. But you have to make your own family. And that's, I think, something like just as a human on this earth, I think a lot of people are stuck in situations, whether it's a job or because of family, and they don't get to be who they want to be, and they're really limited. And I don't want to be 60 years old, in a place where I'm not happy and like there's people acting childish. And I've recently learned that it doesn't matter how old you are, there are still childish people out there. And like I just refuse to put myself around that. And so like if you're not aligning with me, that's fine. I'm not thinking about you, baby. I'm wishing you the best, and like you focus on you and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that, just move forward, focus on your path, focus on the people who love and support you. And, that's what matters. The people, you're always going to be a hero and you're going to be a villain. Like, it doesn't matter. You could be giving millions of dollars to homeless people and somebody's going to hate it. And so just be true in who you are. Be intentional with what you want to put into the world and just scream that out into the planet. And you'll find your family, you'll find your chosen people, and you will like live a meaningful life. Not that this was a life lesson, but maybe that's what it is. That's what Inkvictus has been to me. It's been a life lesson, and it's shown me exactly where I want to go and who I want to be. And it's allowed me the opportunity to do and be that. And I think that's probably my favorite thing to business ownership. But again, you don't have to own a business to be that, because I would like to think I've done that for my team as well. And so you can maybe a little less headache if you can find someone who's doing it and work for them, but like know they care about you. It's probably a lot less headache, honestly. But I'm happy to be the one who, made the space. Like, how humbling to know that there are people who want to work here and are proud to be a part of it. Like, you can't get that anywhere else.
No, that's absolutely amazing. So tell everybody where you're located and what your website is.
So we are on Six Forks Road in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is like basically dead set Raleigh. You can get to us from any direction, really. We're like 20 minutes from everything, which is like perfect location. So happy here. Our website is just inkvictus.com. And like I've mentioned before, we have cosmetic enhancements and florals. So think lashes, waxing, tattoos, traditional tattooing, cosmetic tattooing. We do piercings. We have, a couple things in the works. So we might be having massage soon. We may also be having nails soon. And then with our florist, we do grab and go bouquets as well as like a la carte menu items. So you can kind of pick things if you're planning a wedding, but you don't want like a full shebang thing. And then we also do event packaging as well. We do a lot, and we try to cater to any and everybody by offering millions of different things. We're really accessible with our pricing. A lot of people think we're crazy because our pricing isn't like through the roof, but it's like what we deem as fair. We care more about being able to welcome more people into the doors that want to try these services without having to pay an arm and a leg. Like we don't agree with that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much us. We're a fun group of women who are loud about what we believe in and what we want, and we welcome any and everybody as long as, you're a nice human. And yeah, that's
No,
pretty
that's very important because I agree with you. Gotta be a nice human.
like just be nice. And it's not hard. We really push kindness, and we have set our policies in place to protect everybody. And, if people don't agree with that, that's on them. Like, no hard feelings. Like I said, you don't have to be in my corner. I have enough people in my corner. And same thing, like, I don't have to be in everybody's corner. That doesn't necessarily mean I wish them not good or I wish them the worst or whatever. It's like I want everybody to succeed, but not everybody has to be in my corner to succeed. And I can wish you a best from afar, and, that kind of thing. And I hope the same for everybody else.
We're hoping everybody from season 2 can come back in a year and
Yeah,
update us on how they've grown and everything that's going on with them. So I look
yeah,
forward
I'd be
to hearing
honored.
your updates.
I would be honored. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And everybody listening, you can join us again next week for an amazing episode of Down Home Dirt. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.